You know, here on the channel, I cover the entire Zelda franchise as a whole, but whenever I'm researching for a theory video about Breath of the Wild, I'm constantly reminded about just how much content there is, and how many little Easter eggs and weird oddities that were packed into this game even without the DLC additions. It's no wonder it was delayed for a whole year. I mean, a whole 2 years. And you see, it's because of this immense amount of just good old detail that here we are, 3 years after its release, talking about the aliens of Breath of the Wild. Oh yeah, you heard me. All around us while we were adventuring across the fields of Hyrule, or atop the peaks of Death Mountain, or even through the jungles of Faron, the aliens from outer space were lumbering around alongside us. Allow me to expound upon what exactly I'm on about here. I'm talking about those giant stone guys, the Stone Taluses. Now, I have pretty good reason to believe that these dudes are aliens from off-planet, and I have some evidence and points of logic to back up these claims that we're going to get into in this video. But right before getting into the meat of this juicy theory, why not defeat the YouTube algorithm and stick around by subscribing to the channel? And drop a like on this video if you happen to enjoy my little alien theory. But now, let us delve into the mystery of the aliens of Hyrule. So first things first, I've got to be honest with you. I had some help with this theory. In the past several months, I've had a few commenters here and there comment on the mysterious landmark known as the Gisa Crater, wondering if I would ever cover the strange area. The most recent comment being this one right here. And while normally my theories pop in my head as a byproduct of my mind slowly slipping into madness, this time I decided to take some advice and check out the crater. And boy was I impressed by what I found. For those of you who are like me and didn't know where the Gisa Crater is off the top of my head, it's a relatively small area located to the west of the Tabantha Tower, clearly visible from the tower itself. Scouting the area, you can find several, craters that are smaller in size surrounding a rather large one. As if this wasn't already obvious at this point, the fact that craters pepper the ground in this area implies some sort of series of massive impacts made by very hard objects striking the surface of the earth at immensely high velocities. But we'll expound on that in just a bit. Inside most of the craters, we can actually see what made those gigantic impacts. They're rocks, as expected, but not just any rocks, living rocks. To be specific, the smaller craters have Stone Pebblits inside them, and the large crater has a straight up Stone Talus housed right smack in the dead center of the impact, implying that it was the once airborne flying object that struck this piece of the earth and created this crater. Now, even though this is the only area in the land of Hyrule that features these strange craters, there is still a heck of a lot of information that we can read into, and facts that we can logically deduce from what we've just seen in this game and previous Zelda games. So let's talk about it. In the first place, the idea of the Stone Taluses being aliens isn't even that crazy of a notion, because aliens existing in Zelda games is really nothing new at all. The most iconic appearance of aliens from outer space in this franchise will probably come to mind immediately for the more savvy of you out there who have played the beloved Majora's Mask. In the game, as a side quest helping out a little red-headed farm girl named Romani, of course not to be confused for the alternate universe equivalent red-headed farm girl named Malon, or even the other red-headed girl named Marin. Man, the Zelda developers really liked this character. Anyway, Romani has a little side quest that Link can help out with that entails defending her farm against them, which is the only name Romani refers to these strange monsters that appear at night as. The Hyrule Encyclopedia refers to them as ghosts, but I'm not sure that's a very accurate name. What with the monsters arriving in a ball of light that we could refer to as an unidentified flying object, also known as a UFO, and with them being designed to resemble the Flatwoods monster, which is widely regarded as an alien for those who are into that sort of thing, and the fact that these quote-unquote ghosts will abduct cows, and even Romani herself if Link fails to kill them all, abduction being a staple of alien activity in typical science fiction, it's much more likely that they are aliens and not simply ghosts or Poes. And by the way, one of the creepiest things about them is that when they do return Romani after having abducted the poor girl, her memories have been wiped clean and she just stares blankly at Link when speaking to him. Really creepy stuff, but it also proves that this isn't just some figment of these children's active imaginations. Aliens aliens are real in Zelda lore. As far as Breath of the Wild is concerned though, some of you will be surprised to hear that aliens were actually a concept for this game as well. In a leaked early piece of concept art prior to the game's release, we can see Link standing in a grassy field looking out towards the open sky. Actually, the sky isn't that open because there's a giant UFO hovering far above the ground with quite a few smaller spaceships flying out from an exit on its underside. Satoru Takizawa, the art director for Breath of the Wild, said that, quote, "Some of our younger designers came up with very unique suggestions, like the idea that UFOs could invade from space and abduct cattle." Crazy, right? Also pretty familiar given the aliens from Majora's Mask, but while this concept of UFOs and alien spaceships abducting cattle, and even cattle themselves, didn't quite make it into the final game, I don't think they completely gave up on the idea of extraterrestrials as a whole. And now that I've laid the groundwork for aliens in the Zelda franchise and even in the development for this very game, let's talk about the Stone Talus. This strange living rock enemy is actually living. That sounded better on script, but what I mean by that is those little stone pebblets that Link can literally just chuck around and watch explode are actually young Stone Taluses, according to the in-game information we can gather from the Sheikah Slate's compendium. And since it calls them young, this means they have a growth cycle similar to any other living species. And the reason that the little stone pebbies can be killed so easily as opposed to their mature relatives is that they, being young, have not hardened their outer layer to the point to being essentially impenetrable like the full-grown Stone Taluses, which is our first clue to their alien origins. The fact that the Stone Talus enemies have to mature into functionally and visually resembling rocks, but used to be, I don't know, softer, means that their skin, if you would, is actually not made of rock, but made of some unknown material that resembles rock, but grows over time and also blows up, either on command or when they die. So I believe that it's pretty clear that while these living stones might be able to reach into the earth and command rocks that they use as arms and legs and flying death balls, they themselves are not actually rock. I'm also thoroughly convinced that Stone Taluses are not a part of Calamity Ganon's army because, unlike the more monstery monsters in the evil army that spend some of their free time harassing travelers or chasing down animals to feast on, Stonies tend to mostly keep to themselves and don't appear to try to harm the wildlife around them, unless that is Link, of course. And they can even be targeted in combat by guardians, implying a difference or lack of affiliation for the Stonies. So, given that one of these rock giants is found right in the middle of a giant crater in the middle of other smaller craters, the last question we have to ask is, how were these craters made exactly? Are we 100% certain that the only way the craters were created is from these stone guys falling from orbit? At first, I tried to theorize about the possibility that they were spewed out from within Death Mountain and came to life somehow, but I don't think that flying through the air from Death Mountain Peak would create a big enough impact to cause this much damage to the Earth, especially for the tiny little stone pebblets which created the smaller craters. In my opinion, the only way these large craters formed here is from the big Stone Talus and Co. falling from outer space and crash landing on planet Hyrule. And since they're alive, that can only mean one thing: aliens. So there you have it. Actually, one more thing I'll cover is, since the Stonies are present all over Hyrule, why aren't there craters all over Hyrule if the Stone Taluses truly came from outer space? How else would they have gotten dispersed across the land? Well, allow me to direct the attention to one little bitty concept that will nicely wrap this theory up with a neat little bow on top. I mentioned earlier that Pebblets grow up to be Stone Taluses, right? As in they're essentially babies, right? Well, can't there be more babies made? Actually, there are some Stone Talus bosses that seem to confirm this possibility. Look at these two unique ones in particular. One is called Stone Talus Senior and the other is called Stone Talus Junior. Senior and Junior. The only thing this implies is a parent and child familial relation. If it was simply referring to size, it would instead be major and minor. And if it was only referring to the age of the monsters, it would be something like ancient and young. But instead, they chose to say senior and junior. To be honest, I think they dispersed in the simplest way possible, by multiplying across the lands potentially over the course of the past 100 years, or whenever the first ones crash landed on planet Hyrule. And that is my theory about the invasion world-eating alien species of Breath of the Wild. And although it was a lot of speculation, what do you think? Are Stone Taluses actually aliens? Or have I fallen a bit too far down the rabbit hole? Let me know in a comment below. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching. As always, huge thanks to my supporters, of which I have a couple new names to announce. Please welcome Brittany M and Germ. Enjoy your new benefits, guys. And if you watching are interested in getting your name up here at the end of each of my videos and some fantabulous perks, click that join button below or follow the links in my description to find out how. Also down in that description area are links to my social media pages, like for instance my Discord server. So come on over and chat it up with the most exquisite of Zelda fans and yours truly. That's all I've got for this one, so check out another theory of mine if you enjoyed this one. Have a great rest of your day, and also happy 4th of July, my fellow Americans. This is Masked Nintendo Bandit signing out. Peace.